Hello, beautiful homemakers. We are finishing Chapter 13, Secrets of Fascinating Womanhood. Now, class, we're going to move on to the second part of this lesson on how to handle our husband's anger when it's directed towards us. Cherry, you did so well last time. Tell us how your daughter acts when her daddy gets angry at her. Again, Cherry laughed. That happened last Saturday. Tina had been playing with his chess set during the week and had lost one of his pieces. John really growled at her, poor thing. Well, her little lips quivered and she looked down and rubbed her feet together. Then tears started to trickle down her cheeks. John couldn't stay angry with her for long. He ended up cuddling her and telling her how sorry he was for growling at her. Thank you, Cherry. The teacher looked delighted. Another perfect illustration of fascinating womanhood in action. Of course he couldn't stay angry with her. She was a picture of helplessness. And that's exactly the way we need to react to our husband's anger, with helplessness and vulnerability. Again, allowing our tears to show is most effective. Have you ever heard the proverb of wise King Solomon? A soft answer turns away wrath. I'm sure you have, and it really does work. These feminine reactions are charming to men. It makes them feel wonderfully masculine. Their anger just melts away, and tenderness and love take its place. Now, usually it's best to let our husband pour out all his angry feelings before we say anything, but not always. Some men can say hurtful things when they're angry, and the sooner we diffuse their anger, the better. We need to decide for ourselves when it's best to speak. After all, we know our husbands best. But what if our husband is wrong? Said Beth. Well, even when we're innocent, Beth, we should still hear him out. Before we say anything, we should allow all his angry feelings to come out. Then, if we are innocent, we just softly explain the truth without embarrassing him or challenging him. Here again, let the tears come if you feel like doing so, but let him know that you understand how he made the mistake and that you don't hold it against him. Now, on the other hand, if we are guilty and he has a right to be angry, we must act helpless and vulnerable as a little child would, like Cherry's daughter did. Then we softly say something humble like, "You're right. That was stupid of me. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me?" And what happens? His anger just melts away and his love for us increases. This increase in love might seem strange, but love seems to need emotional interaction to develop and grow, even if it's anger. This feminine way of handling anger we learn in secret number 10 is just wonderful. It saves marriages, really it does. Helena spoke. Yes, what you're teaching us sounds good to me too, but what about when your husband is just plain, you know how men get sometimes. Well, Helena, irksomeness in a man always responds to kindness and sympathy, unless it's caused by resentment. If that's the case, then we are not living all the 4 secrets of fascinating womanhood, or we haven't done all the lesson assignments. They are so important. Now, let's look at what to do if our husband ignores us or flirts with another woman. The best way to handle that situation is by playfully teasing him. We should smile impudently and act ultra-feminine and also be a little saucy to distract him. Touch him in some way. Straighten his tie or smooth his hair or sit on his knee. And we can also start talking about something frivolous. The same high-spirited approach works when he's being too serious or starts to lecture us. If he seems to be getting exasperated, we can pout adorably and give him cheeky glances that say, "You're not going to get angry with poor little old me." In other words, we do what came naturally to most of us as young girls to get our father's attention or to distract him when we thought he was going to scold us. This may be too much for some dignified women, but still it works, and it's delightful and fascinating behavior to a man. Well, that's the end of tonight's lesson, class, and also the end of our course. There are no assignments except to complete any assignments you might not have yet done. Please don't put them off. They have proven over and over again to have powerful effects for good. Our visitors tonight are Vivian and Joy. Vivian's now going to share with us her funny story about how she used childlike anger to get her husband to fix a leaking roof. Then Joy will share how she brought out the tender romantic side of her husband by handling her anger using the natural feminine principles we have learned tonight. Vivian, a true experience. Fascinating Womanhood lets us stamp our feet and shake our heads. Oh, this is fun. Getting my husband to do things had been next to impossible, or so I thought. By getting impatient and nagging, I had accomplished nothing. I became the fix-it man in our home, mowing the lawns, painting, moving furniture. After many days of rain, our living room roof leaked along a 10-foot section. So, trying to let go of the man's role, I got pots, pans, and trays and lined them up along the floor to catch the leaks. It was hard for me not to complain or nag, and even harder not to go up and repair the roof myself. I bit my lip and held my tongue. That night I was awakened by a noise. I leapt out of the bed in the dark and rushed into the living room. I trod on the edge of one of the pans of rainwater, splashing cold water up my leg and all over my nightie. I remembered F.W. and bit my lip. I went outside, and finding nothing wrong, I returned through the living room, where I stepped into another pan, splashing cold water up my other leg and again on my nightie. That did it. I carefully walked back to the bedroom and switched on the light. There lay my husband peacefully asleep. After awakening him, I stamped my foot, shook my head, and punched him on one shoulder and said, "This is for one wet leg." And then I pushed him on the other shoulder and said, "This is for the other wet leg," and a dripping nightie. Startled, he asked what was going on. In a pathetic, appealing voice, almost crying, I said, "I'm dripping wet with rainwater from a leaky roof." I said no more. He was too shocked to say anything. In the morning I was awakened by footsteps on the roof. I peeped out, and there on the roof was my husband making the necessary repairs. When he came in, I praised his muscles and how strong he was, and said that I didn't really know about repairs like he did. He had a delightful smile on his face. About a week later, as I was driving down the road, I noticed my husband's truck overtaking me. He had been home and missed me. He presented me with a kiss and a gift, the most beautiful, gorgeous white chrysanthemums with red satin hearts in the center of each bloom. I was so thrilled I could hardly say a word. He hadn't been in the practice of giving gifts or remembering special days. The card attached had a lovely message. "See, dear, I don't forget. Love, Ron." We hold the keys to our happiness. Joy, a true experience. My marriage was like so many, an armed truce. We had vowed for better or worse, but my husband never wore his ring and spent little time with me or our 2 children. He made it clear that he didn't need me at all. He seldom spoke and never touched me. One lonely day I poured out my heart to a friend who had been through the F.W. course. I can't count the times she said, "That isn't the way to handle it." I got mad at her, but she still persisted with Fascinating Womanhood. Shortly after, my husband and I visited with a bachelor friend of his who desired to get married. While I was doing the dishes, my husband began saying things like, "So, you want to get married? Boy, you don't know when you're well off. Look at all the headaches a wife can bring." At first I took it as a joke, but soon it wasn't funny anymore. I thought, I know what Fascinating Womanhood says about anger. I'll give it a try. I turned around, stomped my foot, and said, "You big hairy beast, I'm never going to like you again, ever." Then I walked out of the room, turning as I went to glance over my shoulder. He was grinning from ear to ear. "Did you hear what she called me? Did you hear?" he said to his friend. I found myself sitting in the bedroom thinking, great, but what now? My husband had never in 8 years of marriage apologized. Yet 2 minutes later he entered the bedroom, sat down beside me, and said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Will you forgive me? I enrolled in the FW class. 2 months later, I received my first birthday card from my husband. It was special, not only because he remembered it, but because he had selected a tiny card showing a cute little hairy beast. It said, Happy birthday lovingly from your hairy beast. He had actually looked for a special card. It's now 5 years later. They have been the best 5 years of my life. My third child was born, and my wonderful husband, who truly can't stand sickness or pain, was with me every minute he could be. The day I left the hospital, the nurses told me that they, all of them, voted my husband the most tender, romantic husband they had ever met. And he is. My prayer is that every woman could know and accept fascinating womanhood. Thank you, Joy. You certainly are doing your part to share the truths of FW with others. Thank you, too, Vivian, for sharing the amusing, feminine way you released your anger and motivated your husband to do his manly duty. The teacher paused and smiled. We have now come to the end of this course. I have really loved being your teacher, and I've loved hearing your successes. We have now become friends. Let's all stay in touch with one another and encourage each other in living these wonderful principles. Now, before we enjoy Bev's delicious-looking sponge cake, can I share just one last word of encouragement? Some of you have had great success already with fascinating womanhood, but it's only the beginning. Most women take about a year to master these principles. Please, don't give up if you fail from time to time. Fascinating womanhood is a one-way road. We must go forward. Only happiness lies ahead. All your heartaches lie behind you. Allow 2 years for the magic to work fully. Some of you will have difficulty in accepting some parts of these teachings, especially acting childlike and being dependent on your husband. But these qualities are important to men, and they are a natural part of our feminine nature. We must be humble enough to accept all the teachings of FW. They have proved themselves over and over again for years and years and years, over 100. Forgive, accept, admire, comfort your husband. Make him number one. Allow him to fully take over the reins of leadership, and then relax, free of worry, and allow your femininity to blossom. Regain the carefree joy of your early childhood. When you do so, your husband will be fascinated with you. He will love you. He will cherish you. He will want to spoil you. Enjoy your role as a mother and homemaker. Take your time and do it well. Develop your talents and never stop learning. Surround yourself with pleasant friends and meet together often during the daytime. Share each other's difficulties. Keep your standards high and encourage one another to grow spiritually. Comfort and pamper your husband when he comes home weary. Refresh him with your femininity. He will love you dearly and deeply. He will want to place you on a pedestal, so to speak. He will even worship you and treat you as his queen. Always, always be feminine, just as you were as a young child. Childlike femininity and charm in a woman of any age is always appealing to a man. Dresses, feminine hairstyles, hair ornaments, trim waistline, all these things delight men and are important to them. But even these delights are no match for a woman's loving smile. Be joyful and exuberant in showing your appreciation to your husband. It gladdens his heart. Men's tastes never change in these things. Remember that opposites attract. Do the opposite of what men do. You will be noticed and smiled at and fussed over. Men love to be around a truly feminine woman. And finally, remember God. Pray every morning and every night and nourish your spirit by reading good books and the Bible. Set aside a certain time every day for this spiritual development. It will bring serenity into your life. Remember that your husband expects you to be a better person than him, so keep your standards high. Remain worthy of the pedestal that your man loves to place you on. Then the teacher handed Angela a small white book, opened to a marked page. Angela, you have a lovely reading voice. Would you close our course by reading the words of Ruth Stafford Peele? Angela stood and faced the class and read. No job, no hobby, no activity on earth can compare with the drama and the exhilarating experience of living with a man, loving him, doing your best to understand his infinitely complex mechanism, and helping to make it hum and sing and soar the way it was designed to. Ted had earlier asked Angela to phone him from the foyer that night when she was ready for him to come and pick her up. Cherry offered to take her home, but Angela thought it best to depend on Ted and let him come and get her. When Ted answered the phone, Angela was about to say, in a matter-of-fact voice, "You can come and get me now, Ted." Instead, she quickly reconsidered and said in a cheerful, melodious voice, "I'm ready, darling." "Okay, Angie, I'll be there in a few minutes." Angela noticed that Ted's voice was becoming deeper, more masculine, and more good-natured. He also had a new confidence that thrilled her. Angela waited outside. It had stopped raining and was now a mild, clear night. The stars shone brightly. Ted pulled up in his van, and for the first time since they were married, he leaned over and opened the door for Angela from the inside. She smiled her appreciation. Angela chatted for a short time as they drove home. Feeling content and loved, she started to sing. Angela felt Ted's warm, strong hand take hold of her hand. As they drove homeward through the night, a streetlight briefly illuminated Ted's face. Angela saw that he was smiling. The end.